Hello everyone, welcome to this community event number 2. It's exactly 2 months since the last time we had this community event. This will be a recorded session. We will make this recording available for everyone on our public YouTube channel as soon as we can after this meeting. Today I have brought with me some friends from Unleashed to tell about 2 things. We will look a bit first on some of the achievements in the last few months, some of the key functionality we have been building and shipping as part of Unleash. We will also give you a very sneak peek on what we are planning for the next 3 months. We will not tell you everything, but we will share more soon. We always aim for having as much as we do as open as possible. We believe in transparency. We want to have a public roadmap. We will try to do it a bit differently this time, using issues on GitHub to make it easier for everyone to contribute with ideas or feedback on the ideas we have. So watch your GitHub project, and you will probably soon, hopefully within 1 or 2 weeks, you will see a new column for Q3 and what we are planning. So we will start with segmentation. Simon, would you like to explain a bit what we have been doing behind the scenes for the last few months, actually?
Absolutely. Thanks, Ivar. So if you've been using Unleash for a while, you might have had some exposure to strategy constraints, which allow you to narrow your toggle down to a particular audience. And when we released that feature, we got a lot of very good feedback from people. A lot of folks liked it, but a common thing that we heard from people is that it was quite frustrating to have to recreate a new one each time for each toggle. And we heard you, and in response to that, we built segments. So segments is effectively a way of reusing a set of strategy constraints over and over again on as many toggles as you like, as many strategies you like. So you create them once, you use them. And that's what you're seeing on that screenshot to the right there. So that's a segment that defines anyone who works on Unleash, effectively anyone who has an Unleash email address. And what's quite nice about that particular screenshot is I didn't build that segment. I actually borrowed it from a colleague who built it in response to him testing stuff. And this will be coming out in 4.13. We're very excited about this. And the lovely thing is you don't need an SDK upgrade. It'll work with all of your modern day SDKs already. And that should come right out the box. And one of the things that we've really enjoyed about this is technically it's a very interesting feature, and we've done a lot of experimentation on it. And we'd quite like to give you a very quick little insight into what the experimentation was behind the scenes. Thank you, Ivar, you're a mind reader. So backwards compatibility is super important for us at Unleash, but so is the future. So we also like to experiment. So we've taken an interesting approach with this feature. We support the older SDKs. As you can see from this diagram, whenever an older SDK reaches out to Unleash, it'll reformat all the segments into a response that an existing SDK understands. It'll remap them as constraints effectively. If you're using one of the more modern SDKs, right now that's only supported in Java and Node, it'll send you back a highly optimized format that'll allow your SDK to effectively process tons and tons and tons of constraints really, really fast without having any impact on you. So we've got backwards compatibility, and we're looking forward to the future at the same time. We're going to be releasing some technical details in the blog post if anyone's interested in the nitty gritty. But the nice thing about this is you don't need to worry about it. It'll just work out the box. And an important thing to understand about this one, guys, is it's released, but it's not finished. We want to build this feature with you. We think this is a very interesting thing, and we're looking for your feedback. So it's coming out in 4.13. Give it a try if you're interested. We put some soft caps on some of the limits. This is just to protect you from yourselves so you don't create tons and tons of segments. But if you've got an interesting use case and you want to expand a little bit, you want to use 1,000 segments or 10,000 segments, reach out to us, have a chat. The new formats can certainly handle hundreds of thousands up to millions. So we want to hear your use cases. We want to see what you guys make use of it, and we're going to build with you.
Nice, thank you. I think we should just move over to OpenAPI and Thomas, and we will take questions at the end.
Right, yeah, let's do it. So when we had our last community event, was it 2 months ago exactly? Was that what you said? Yeah. We did mention that we were going to start looking into using OpenAPI and actually specking up all the endpoints that we've got, all the APIs. And the good thing is we're almost done. Now, if you haven't been around this before, what OpenAPI is and what it will help us do is that it's an accurate and up-to-date, and there'll be interactive, the API documentation. Now, if you've ever written documentation, trying to keep statically written documentation up to date with all the stuff that's going on in development, that's really hard and it's really time consuming, and it's hard to make sure it's actually in sync. So with OpenAPI, obviously, what we're doing is we're making sure it validates everything we send out and everything that goes in, so that we can make sure that it's actually completely accurate to what we do supply. And it also will help us document some of the APIs that we haven't actually documented so far, just because there's a fair few and there's just not been people to get around to actually writing them down. So once this is completely ready, you'll have everything ready. It'll always stay up to date with whatever's going on. And using the web version, it's also interactive, so you can go and try out all the different endpoints to see if they work as you'd expect. Now, another really cool thing about OpenAPI is, because it's such a big spec, is you can actually generate custom clients directly from the specification. Now, that might not be the ideal thing if you're doing, say, a client for like an SDK client. But if you're writing your own admin interface, for instance, or writing a little CLI client, you can just generate all the little stuff you need, fetch all the data you need directly. Another really nifty thing is we do input validation, obviously, when you send the stuff, but we also do output validation. Now, Unleash has been running it for a while, and there's been a couple of changes to schemas and the database going around. And sometimes data shows up in not quite the right format, or it's not quite where we expect it to be. Now, obviously, we'd never want to break any of your stuff if what we send out isn't what we expect it to be. However, what we do is we log it, and then we can go and see, wait, actually, something's wrong here, and then we can find plans to mitigate it and to rectify it. As I said, this is an ongoing thing. The OpenAPI spec for the Unleash proxy is already finished. It was released in version 0.10, which was out about 24 hours ago. So if you've got it already, wow, you're quick. If you don't, go grab it. There's also quite a bit of other cool stuff in that release. Unleash is actually like this close to being done. We're aiming at getting all the controllers done this week. There's another 2 or 3 left, I think, and it's very, very, very close. It won't be out in 4.13 completely, but it will be out in a release very shortly. However, when I say it will be out, it means will be finished. It is actually already, all the endpoints that we have done are available, and you can go and test them out, even though we can't guarantee that everything works perfectly just yet. But you can go and enable it using the enable OAS environment variable. The same thing goes with the proxy, and that one should be ready to go as soon as you want to. So just a little bit more, and we'll have this done. And with that, I reckon, Timek, are you up?
Yes, accessibility, because we're moving to UI improvements. And while we still have our ways to go in terms of improving it and make it even more accessible for everybody, because it's not just for people who have issues accessing the app, but changes that I provided here as examples that we did in Q2 will help everybody. Keyboard shortcuts, we would like to extend it in the future. And also one very recent community contribution that I would like to highlight as an example is a fix to input attributes. This change improved how password managers work with Unleash by auto-completing credentials. So it's great to see that. Let's move to next slide. Yeah, tables. So it was a lot of work in recent months, and we iterated a lot on that because it's a key component of the UI. We want to get it right. And on the side, you can see zoomed out our UI elements and listed all the possibilities, all the experimentation that we did. So right now, we unified look and feel across all the screens entirely. We're not done, but it's ready to use. We want to improve it even further. And everything should work as expected without hiccups. We optimize performance. I'll showcase this in a bit. And can we jump back?
Okay. Sorry.
And we noticed a couple of things, small things, that right now I don't even feel like were changes because it's so obvious that we had to change it. Like I don't even notice that we didn't have search before on all the tables that needed. I'm so used to that working with Unleash right now that we should have had it earlier, but it's iterative process. We want to improve. We want to prioritize what's really important. And this was something that I think, I hope not many people will notice, but will speed up day-to-day activities for everybody. And one awesome feature that we added to tables was filtering, because we have search. We have search on next slide on almost every table, but now we also added filters. So you can share it. It's in the URL, the same way as sort is. You can just narrow down what you need and send it to a coworker. They will see exactly the same screen as you do, focused on what's important. And that's also kind of an accessibility feature that, yeah, I'm very happy that we have this in the application. Maybe I'll now showcase how it works in practice.
Yes, please. That would be awesome.
To, share
just take over the screen.
Yeah. Window and this one. So I see the database with a lot of features, feature toggles, sorry, and it's still not crashing, and it works. And it wasn't the case before, unfortunately, but right now everything's smooth, and you can sort with just almost immediately, right? Because it's all virtualized. So it's not rendering stuff that's beyond the window immediately. And this way, search also works immediately. And it highlights search term the same way as native search would, or similar way. And also you can like debug your search term here. You have default or like state stale and then test. And I focus down on just one feature toggle out of 800 in like 2 or 3 seconds, right? It's all in the URL. Yeah, that's it for my highlights. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tymoteusz. I will take over the screen now. We are back. So in addition to the segmentation and the Open API and a lot of UI improvements around table sorting, filtering, accessibility, we also done a lot of other smaller things. This is just a few of them. We did improvements around the API, so we significantly improved the performance of the client API itself. We also added support for multiple projects in the client token, so you can now create a client token for a single project, all projects, or a combination of specific projects. So you can kind of decide yourself if it makes sense for your application to consume 2 projects instead of just 1 or all. So it gives more flexibility. For our Unleashed Cloud offering, we completed the migration fully to Kubernetes in this quarter. We also done a lot of improvements on our Kubernetes setup. We are doing single tenant per customer in multiple regions. We have blogged about what we actually do, so you can read up in our infrastructure blog. This is also obviously continuously improving as we are learning more and adding more capabilities. We also have done 2 new SDKs this quarter. They are still considered proof of concept, so we haven't marketed them very hard yet. We have one for Vue and we have one for Svelte, making Unleash accessible to more front-end developers. So what about the future? So we cannot share everything yet. We plan to share everything with everyone that we can. But now we have 2 focus areas for the next 3 months. We will double down on developer experience. This is super important to us. We will build something called Unleash Playground. We just started ideation. We have done a lot of proof of concepting around this idea. What we want to do with Unleash Playground is to make it easier to understand Unleash. How does the rules actually evaluate? Given a context, which toggles will be enabled in this environment, for example. So we have some cool ideas around the Unleash Playground, and we hope to bring that to everyone soon. Obviously, we did talk about the embedded proxy in the last quarter. That for multiple reasons that was scoped out for Q2. We hope to take up that idea and look a bit more on this, how we can make it easier for those simple use cases of Unleash to also have Unleash working for the front end, so they don't have to host something differently to do that. But again, I need to stress, I know you're going to ask this anyway, Robert, this is an opt-in and not opt-out, or you need to enable it if you want this functionality. So we are not kind of forcing this, but the idea is to make it easier to try out Unleash and ease the onboarding experience also for front-end developers. We have a lot of more ideas around how to improve the UI itself, but also the API side of things. So a lot of the things that we have done on the UI in this iteration or this quarter has allowed us to also, and we have planned for how we can bring a lot of these queries all the way back to the API to scale it even further. So we can not only kind of do very fast filtering on the front end, but we can also limit what we actually present to the front end. That makes sense for the future. On the enterprise side, we are working with large enterprises. We see a lot of enterprise-specific needs. Examples of that would be user groups. So it's a way to control permissions on a group level instead of individual users. We see that makes sense when you have hundreds, even thousands of developers, and making it easier to administer access to Unleash, basically. Also kind of user-specific or personal API tokens, so you can kind of represent a specific user via API calls. That is also something that is quite heavily requested. And we have some interesting plans around the Unleash proxy that we will share with everyone at some point, but it's going to be amazing. And we have done a lot of learning. We open sourced the Unleash proxy a year ago, and we've done a lot of learning. We got a lot of feedback, and we see that we need to do some iterations on it to respond to some of that feedback. We have some ideas, and it's going to be quite cool, I think. So with that, I don't think we have anything more. So now we are actually opening up for questions from you guys. While I'm waiting, you can use the raise hand if you want to kind of signal that you have anything to ask. While waiting, I would just like to highlight that we have a very strong growing team. I'm really satisfied with the team, and we are onboarding some of the best developers I've ever worked with. So I'm very happy about that. It's not just me anymore. It's actually, we are now 2 teams of developers working on this full time. So this is super awesome to see. And we also also super cool to have this engaging. We have a lot of engagement with our customers, also with users, with open source users. We get feedback on our GitHub repositories every day, and we are so delighted to have this opportunity to work so close with so many people. So, any questions? Anything you would like to know about our plans, or what we are not planning to do, or how many cars God have in his garage? He has a lot of cars.
I have a discussion I'd be delighted to have, but I don't know if this is the right time for it.
Yeah, we could try at least then.
Simon knows what I'm going to talk about.
I'm excited, Robert.
In the Rust SDK, we're working on adding version 4 and newer support, and we've found some of the stuff is rough to model in Rust.
Yeah.
And I think the things that make it Rust are a combination of it being a statically typed language. So you have to work to emulate dynamic language kind of approaches, but also the kind of, we want to have it be really, really clear inside the code of the SDK itself, what's going on, so that we can compile it. I think this is currently unique to the Rust SDK, but we actually compile the flags that we get into executable closures. So we're not doing a dynamic interpretation of it on each enabled call. We're actually running this compile code, which is to say, like, things that short circuit, like always true, always false, actually end up being just a constant and working very, very fast. So I think there's kind of two big things. One is I'd like to be involved to help next iterations of the API fit better with Rust, because it's important to me that the folk at my company that are using Unleash be able to use it well with confidence around the performance and so on, and like making sure the Rust SDK works well is my kind of lever for driving that. And then the other angle is I'd really love to have a discussion about backwards API incompatible changes to take what's currently being there and doesn't fit particularly well and turn that into something that can expire over time and have something really lovely and clean going forward. More of a rant and less of a discussion, but we can turn it into a discussion if you like.
Yeah, I don't think we can take the full length of that discussion, but obviously it's an interesting discussion to be made, and I think it makes more sense to maybe move that full discussion into a separate fora where we can also
absolutely
go a bit deeper. I think in general terms, I think what we aim for is to obviously provide as much predictability across all the SDKs as we can. And we see there was some couple of things, and examples will be, for instance, like the randomness could be part of the Unleash context. That would actually make a lot of sense, because then we could also ease the integration testing in all the SDKs. So I think there is a lot of learnings to be had. Like if we really start thinking through the API on the client side of things, I think there is a lot of things we can learn out of the constraint of it needs to be very strictly typed. I think that can make it easier to implement SDKs correctly. I think there is
it easier to represent them as open API.
Exactly.
I'm sure you've run into some friction there.
Exactly, and a lot of things can kind of be solved by just saying this is a string, but that is not very helpful from an implementer side of things if it's actually something very concrete. So I think there is a lot of interesting things we can double down on here, and I think it also aligns a bit with some of the ideas we have. We are not there yet. We have done a lot of experimentation, but I know you, Simon, have a very nice little pet project around kind of a common SDK engine. It's quite tedious to implement the SDKs in all the languages. It would be nice. I'm not sure if we can actually compile it to all the programming languages from one source, but maybe we could at least, there could be a rule engine we could adopt, like the specification for it. There could be ways to kind of model this so we can actually easier support more programming languages. And this is at least an area where we haven't decided anything, but we are very keen on exploring and piggybacking other people's learnings around this area, because I think it would be very helpful for everyone if we could do whatever is possible to make it as easy as possible to create the SDKs correctly.
Yeah.
But I think we should move the full discussions and probably the Rust-specific concerns into a separate kind of fora. And we will be happy to take you on up on that, to be honest. We can kind of make that happen at least. And I think it would be, at least for me, also probably a bit educational. Then we always seek to learn and improve, because we don't know everything either. We are always kind of learning more as we go.
I'm be delighted to do that. And as I said at the beginning of this, I didn't think that we were going to have time to do the whole conversation. So yeah, reach out. Was it something else?
Yeah, we will do that. Thanks.
A related one, which is not entirely part of that conversation, is the specification tests for the clients. Don't currently specify the behavior. They carve out a subset of it, but there's a lot of stuff that there are actual expectations around that aren't covered. So that would be, I don't think that needs a discussion. That's more like just it needs to get done.
Yeah.
But one thing that would be interesting there is if you were to use property-based testing. When you say, this is the shape in a mathematical sense, and then that could produce like a few thousand or a few tens of thousands of test cases that explore the corners of what the data type can represent. And because this data type is a language, that then becomes exploring the behavior. I think it would be very time efficient for you and give a great deal of confidence to implementers of clients like myself.
Definitely makes sense. I think we have a good sense of what the shape should be, but it's really hard to test all the edge cases. So it really, really makes sense to explore how we can make it even more bulletproof.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So that's all I have. Yeah. Although I'm curious what you said, like the thing I would be worried about earlier. I didn't catch what I would be worried about. So if you wanted to expand on that, that would be great.
No, I just said that we will do embedded proxy. We didn't have time for completing that in Q2, and we will add that to this quarter, the next 3 months. The purpose of doing that is to make it easier to start playing with Unleash, and we see there is a lot of friction today for a lot of people. When they start Unleash, they also have to start a proxy. We want to simplify that experience by allowing you to turn on something inside Unleash that would kind of expose toggles to the front end through an embedded proxy. But again, this is something you would need to enable.
Thank you. I'm with you now, and thank you for the reminder.
Yeah. So, anyone else? Are you in your garage, guard?
Yes, it's summer vacation here, so the kids are at home, so I sit in the garage working. I have built the garage to facilitate for work, so I have nice fiber in here as well, and yeah, it works great. So it's not a fake background.
So do anyone else have any question at all? Please use this to raise your hand. This is your opportunity to get any question you might have. It could be a bug, it could be something you're curious about. We could show you something if there is something you want us to showcase. If not, I think we should just end it by that. And thanks all for taking the time to show up for this. Again, this was a recorded session. We will make the recording available. And have a nice summer, everyone.